Hey, what's up,
Dude,
man?
what's going on, man?
I'm sorry about that, dude. Right now, last few minutes, I was running around my apartment trying to figure out why the service wasn't working, and now I worked up a sweat, and I was like, man, I don't want to let this guy down.
No, no, man, it's all good. I know how it goes. I'm crippled when it comes to technology. I always get my butt kicked by my phone and computer, so I know how it goes.
Yeah, but I'm supposed to be the one that's supposed to be good with this stuff. Like it's kind of like that early 20s, mid 20s
I know, I
generation.
know. You don't have an excuse. I do.
I don't. I grew up with computers and stuff, so I should have that right. But man, how's everything been going by you in Vegas?
It's a bit of a rebellious moment here in Vegas. Every gym owner I know is ready to give the governor the middle finger and just get back to work. I was originally a little more supportive of this lockdown. Now I think it's at the point where, we're about to enter a Great Depression. I'm already thousands of dollars in the hole with this since the pandemic. So I don't know how long I want to endure this. It's gotten to the point where I'm ready to take the risk. And when people ask me, I'm thinking like, it's kind of what makes sense at this point. I think we've been very patient over the last 2, 3 months, and I think we got to get back to work at this point.
I think so too. It's funny at the same time though. I've been the one that's been like cautious. I'm afraid to really go anywhere because I have like older parents and stuff that I worry about. But at the same time, it's like if there's not going to be like a vaccine for it for another year or so, we just kind of have to keep living. We can't stay like this for a year, year and a half. That's for sure. Um, it's not that's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. And, I think that the economic consequences of having the entire economy stop are actually worse than the virus. And just because we stay at home and not working doesn't mean the virus is going to go away. So the virus is still around. I believe we've flattened the curve to a large extent. And now we just got to go and get on with our lives. And, we've done our job. We've waited patiently, but our bills haven't been frozen this whole time. So
Yeah.
I've kind of lost my patience.
Yeah, I hear you. Has everything still been shut down in Vegas for the most part, or are things starting to open up again?
Well, some businesses like the restaurants, like, only so many people allowed.
Mm.
It's not, there's been some openings, right? Like gyms, obviously, they don't really fall in that category. But yeah, it's kind of back to normal, but not really. I think gyms are going to be the last one. If the governors knew what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was, the good news is we fall in the category of karate and taekwondo. If they only knew what we do and we're breathing in each other's faces the whole time, I
Yeah,
don't think they would let us open ever. But fortunately, they
it'll
don't
just be
have
over
any
forever.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you come back and when you open up, what do you think your protocol is going to be? Are you going to follow like the marking of the mats and stuff like that, or do you kind of have your own setup that you're kind of envisioning when it comes when you're able to open your gym?
Well, my vision is to limit the amount of students. I might have to shorten the classes. Instead, we normally have classes that go either an hour, hour and a half, or up to 2 hours, right? I might
Hmm.
have to limit classes to maybe like 50 minutes. And then
Yeah.
I have two pretty big mat areas, so I can have like up to 10 people per mat area. And that group is locked, so you always train with the same people.
Yeah.
And they're in the gym for 45 minutes, 50 minutes. We got 10 minutes to clean the mats, and a new group comes in. That
Hmm.
way, we never have too many people in the gym, so we limit the amount of people that everyone's exposed to. It's going to be hard because everyone wants to train at 5, 6, 7 p.m. Those are prime times, so it's going to be difficult to coordinate. But that's the best idea I have right now. We can't really lock each other away in like a little square with tape on the mats. I'm seeing people do that, and that's not going to work, man. Like,
Yeah.
we got to roll, That's what no one, the two things everyone hates in jiu-jitsu are warm-ups and techniques. What
And
we
if you could,
love is our friends and rolling. And we've been deprived of the two things we care about the most. And now, really the only thing we got going for us is like the technique and the warm-ups, like it's not fun, man. Like we like that
yeah.
close proximity. That's what we do. That's our life. And it's just the way it is, just really doesn't feel like jiu-jitsu anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I was even thinking like I was really curious as to like when Marcelo's opens up again, what the protocol is going to be because if it is kind of like what I've seen with some gyms where it's just warm ups and like solo stuff, I'm like, well, I've got some mats in my apartment. My roommate trains. He used to wrestle. I'm like, I might just stick with him, for the time
Yeah.
being because me making the commute into the city is always a little bit of a challenge sometimes. So I might as well just stay at home if it's going to be that limited. I don't want to. I want to support my gym, of course, but like if it's going to be so limited as it is, that's I don't know if it's really like worth the commute sometimes.
No, I agree. Like I don't blame you. I think that a lot of people are kind of thinking that right now. Like a lot of people have mats at home and they're just training with their favorite friends. That's gonna get old though. Like, you know,
Yeah,
we
it is
it's
old.
about community. It's about senior friends. It's about like the laughs at the end of class when everyone's tired and just sitting in a circle and bullshitting. And that's part of the reason why we love what we do. It's not just the role and it's not just the technique, and that's all fun and great, but I think we just miss being around our friends. You know, I think that's like I call it the jiu-jitsu social glue. That's what I call it. You know, you go to the gym, not just to learn how to fight. It's not just for fitness. It's not for medals. It's the community that it builds, you know, and I think that's something very endearing about the sport. And we're missing that. You know, I think everyone just misses being around their friends at the gym, and it's a place, it's a happy place. You know,
Yeah,
like work is not always a happy place. The home is not always a happy place, but you don't have a choice with home and work. You got to go home. You got to go to work. But when it comes to jiu-jitsu gym, you choose to be there. So if it's a place you choose to be, then it has to be a happy place, you know. And I think
of course.
that the BJJ gym is a happy place for millions of people around the world, and we're just missing it. It's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, I don't think I've ever been diagnosed with anything. Like, I know a lot of people come for training because they deal with certain anxieties, and it's a way to have a kind of release. And for me, it's always kind of been a job. It's been something I've been doing my whole life, so it's just part of me. But I also do see the kind of release that training gives me as well. And it's something where it's like during this time, of course it's been difficult, but like during the time like this where there's so much stress about how we're gonna live and how people are gonna be able to keep working and stuff like that. Training is just so important at that point. Like
Yeah.
I've been able to sneak a few sessions, and I remember after finishing each time, I was like, I would just feel so much better afterwards.
Yeah, and I think we take that for granted, right? Because you get used to it, so it's part
Yeah,
of your routine. Go to the gym every day. When it's taken away from you, that's when you're missing the endorphins, right? And any
yeah,
kind of chemical in your brain, whether it's a positive one or a negative one, they are addicting because your body becomes accustomed to these endorphins, right? These chemicals. And the feeling of rolling, of having someone try to choke you and you trying to choke them back, and it sounds like masochist, but it's fun. Like we get addicted to it, you know. Like I don't like to light roll. Like I was always known for. Like to me, light rolling has never been fun. It's
yeah,
always been. I like going to war. That's why I'm all beat up. Like I have like no cartilage left in my body. But to me, it's like I don't get a kick out of any other way, to roll. Like that's what I enjoy. But it's that battle that I crave. You know, it's the
yeah,
fearsome. Like I'm going to try to beat you, and the more you try to beat me, the higher I get, the more I enjoy the battle. Like I don't like to
yeah,
roll with people that aren't trying to beat me.
yeah.
So I miss that, and I think we all do, and I think that it just makes us reassess why we do jiu-jitsu and how important these things are. And it's in some ways it's been good though. Like there's been a lot of self-reflection. I've been able to get to know myself a little better.
Hmm.
I used to read a lot when I was younger. I've moved away from. I've gotten too business-minded, make money kind of thing, and
Yeah,
it was kind of like to put a pause on all that and like let's reevaluate everything that's important in life. And to me, it's been good. Like I get to spend a lot of time by myself and with myself, and it's been a learning experience. I actually overall I've actually enjoyed the lockdown. It's been for myself. Speaking for myself, financially it's been a nightmare. Financially it's been horrible.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
there's more to life than that. You have
Of
to be
course.
content with yourself, and you have to find the things that make you happy and what is truly important in life. And I
Hmm.
think I've found some of these things that I think I have lost over time. So
Yeah.
in that regard, the lockdown has been overall it's been positive.
I've been feeling a lot of the same way. Where I remember I went into this and I had like a 2 day depression because I was like, man, all I do is train. All I do is spend my time on the mats. What else do I have if I don't have this? So it kind of forced me to kind of like try to focus on other things that I wouldn't be able to if I was training for competition or just training to train as well. I've had an opportunity to work on my brand a bit more. I've had an opportunity to find different ways to promote myself or teach and stuff like that. I've been doing some online classes, just forcing myself to be more creative. During this time, how do you feel like you've been able to, a few ways you find yourself like improving outside of jiu-jitsu?
When it's hard to improve in jiu-jitsu without training, but there are things you can do. I've always been
I
a big
mean, it
fan.
doesn't even have to be jiu-jitsu. It could be anything that you've been able to, yeah,
I've always told myself since I was a child, I've always wanted to learn how to play the guitar, and
yeah,
I've never really taken the time. It's always like playing around with it here and there, but I told myself if I'm going to be locked at home all day, I'm going to walk out of this quarantine playing the guitar.
yeah.
And I think it's fair to say I'm like a 3-stripe white belt. I'm
Okay,
close. I'm
you
close
got
to getting a
stripes. You
blue
got
belt.
stripes.
I can play a few songs, and it happened during the quarantine, right?
Hmm.
I told myself I always wanted to read Shakespeare. Never been able to. I've tried a million times. I could never get past the Old English. It's like I'm on my sixth Shakespeare book now, and like I can almost understand the man, you know. And it's like a challenge. It's something that I set for myself that I'm going to make the most out of this, and I want to be able to walk out of this like a better version of me. And I think that, you know, one thing that's been a theme that's been ringing in my head a lot, because I went through that phase too. You were mentioning depression, and the first couple of weeks it was very hard on me because there's a financial issue, and like I have a lot of responsibilities, of course. But, and I should download this game. I was playing video games the first week. So I was just playing games.
Yeah.
And then I deleted it. I'm like, nah, this is a waste of my time. I'm going to do something productive. I'm going to improve on myself. And the theme that's been ringing in my head this whole time is like, what you do with your free time defines you. What defines you is not what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself, you think very highly of yourself, but it's not necessarily accurate. You know, it's not what other people think. People are wrong all the time. You want to find out who you really are is like, what do you do with your free time? You got nothing to do. What are you doing? You know, are you scrolling through Instagram and creeping on people's lives? Are you dreaming about money? Are you dreaming about women? Are you dreaming about professional success? What is it that you dream about? Like, where does your mind go when you got nothing else going on? And I think that right there speaks volumes about you, who you are as a person. You know, it's an easy way to really find out who you are and discover yourself, because, you know, we get into these things where like, oh, I know who I am, you know, but do you really? You will just really want to believe that character you've created.
Yeah.
You know, and I think sometimes like the quiet time can expose you, because if you just waste your quiet time, and perhaps we're not as productive and as, you know, as we would like to think we are. You know, and for myself, like the first 2 weeks, I was doing absolutely nothing. It was just a waste. And now I've been, man, like it's never been, like I really feel like the quarantine's been positive, and I'm loving it. And I mean, minus the financial issue, that part
Of course.
you know, other than that.
Yeah. No, I've kind of appreciated how it's given me an opportunity to kind of like assess where I'm at, you know, off the mat as well, and kind of evaluate the things that I need to prioritize more. So I don't know. It's been kind of an eye-opening experience, but definitely, like going back to what we said, I definitely miss the training. You know, I miss everything that comes along with it. And it was funny. Usually today at Marcelo's is the last day, like the last hard day of training before Worlds. And that hit me today. I woke up, I was like, oh man, normally Marcelo's is closed on Memorial Day, but we get like all just the world's competitors, guys who are going to compete, and we do like an open mat just with Marcelo for like an hour and a half. And he gives us like this big pep talk before. You never have Marcelo really give pep talks. So to hear it from him like once a year, you know, so to not have that, you know, and kind of have that, like we were talking about camaraderie again is difficult, but you know, you got to find the positives in it. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't stop the negatives. Like, I think that's one thing that it's, you know, you're going to learn in life sooner or later, is that you can't, you know, that there's going to be negatives. And you can either turn these, it's like getting your butt kicked on the mats. You're going to lose. You're going to get swept. You're going to get taken down. That can either break you, or you can use that as an opportunity to go home and think, why did I got caught in that triangle?
Yeah.
Why did I get swept? And then you can torture yourself for the next 2 days on why you made that mistake. And then you come back a better version of yourself when you come back to the gym. And that's why like, you have to learn how to embrace the negative. And it sounds contradictory, because no one wants suffering. No one wants negative. No one wants to lose. No one wants to be in a bad spot. But these things better us. Like, you don't get better by winning. And I always say this to my students. Winning makes you feel good. But feeling good is not the path to progress. The path to progress is feeling like crap all the time. And it really is the truth. Like, your biggest leaps in jiu-jitsu, and I don't even know you that way, but I know you're going to agree with me, have been when you lost, when you got your ass kicked in the gym, and when you lost. And that's when you really force yourself to the next level, because when you win, this is the truth of the matter. You pat yourself on the back. Your friends pat you on the back. You're so in love with your performance and that medal that there's zero self-analysis. There's no analysis going on. When you lose, that's all there is. It's just analysis. It could be a silver medal. And we know that the difference between gold and silver is very thin. There's a very small difference. But when that silver medal will haunt you for the rest of your life, right? Because you're going to keep thinking about those mistakes. And because you're thinking of them, you're less likely to make them. So, you know, I think that it is a life lesson to really look at the negative and welcome it. You know, look at the bad things that happen, all your losses, and even a moment like this, and like look at it as something positive, because the opposite is too hard. The opposite is just pain, and you don't really improve on it. Like, you need to use the opportunity to really become a better self, you know. And I mean, that's something I repeat myself a lot, and I think it's helpful. You know, I think that most people, they can get into this dark hole of negativity, and instead of using it as something positive.
Yeah, I think I've always noticed that like my best results have always come from like learning from negative experiences, or losing or learning from like losses before. They've always made me come back stronger. It's definitely easy to kind of you know enjoy the wins and not really kind of see what you could have done better at that time as well. And like you said, it is interesting how a win and a loss, especially at the highest level, is so small, where we look at them so differently based off of maybe a ref's decision or one advantage or something like that. That makes all the difference.
Yeah. And history is so unfair with the second place. I've always had a warm place in my heart for that silver medal, because everyone remembers Michael Phelps, but no one remembers a guy who was like a quarter of a second, like a fraction of a second behind him, and
Yeah,
he's just as good.
just as good.
Just as good, but
Yeah.
no one's going to remember him. And then it brings another question: is being remembered the most important thing? Is that a true motivation? Is that a noble motivation? Do you really fight to be remembered, or you fight for the love of the art? Because if the art is an end in of itself, then it's not a means to an end. And I think that when you're fighting for fighting becomes a means to an end, you start doing it for the wrong reasons. And when you're doing it for the wrong reasons, I think that it's you're on the wrong path. I think that you got to learn how to appreciate for what it is. We're striving for excellence, but silver or gold, it's the lesson that you take with you. That's the true treasure, and people can't miss out on that. But like I always say this, like the second place never gets the credit. No one really cares about vice champion of the world, man. It's crazy, but it's so true.
Yeah, it's crazy how like we said, like a ref's decision, something so small, or like what you said, like Phelps beating someone by a fraction of a second, that makes all the difference. And he'll be remembered, but the person that was literally basically right there with them, a 0-0 ref's decision or a fraction behind, can be forgotten very easily, which is unfortunate.
I think that that it's the press and the fans. They're not always fair. I think that people, when they're more educated in the sport, they understand and they're able to give credit to the guy. Sometimes it's a flash knockout in the UFC. Sometimes it's a fraction of a second in a pool or in a racing track. But I think that the more educated fans can appreciate the technique and effort that goes behind all of this, regardless of the end result. But no one fights for second place, right? Everyone wants to win, but there's something very positive in that silver medal. There's something to be said about being second, and I think that my best lessons were from losing, losing that final. Like those were some of my best experiences in jiu-jitsu, and most helpful ones, really.
I feel like those experiences really help you out as a coach as well, right? Like you can really be able to instill like some lessons that you would pick from that, not just for yourself, but also for your students as well. Like I even noticed some of the best coaches aren't the ones that would always win all the time. That would be just like completely unbeatable. And there was never anyone that was like that. But the people that had to go through the trials and tribulations and maybe lose a couple, I have always seen to be like some of the best professors that I've ever seen, because they've been through it all. They've been through the wins, and they can share how that is, but also through losses and how to deal with that and how to kind of embrace those negative times and become better from it.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think that some of the best coaches I've ever seen, they were good, but they're not great. They were like, they were never like the top 10 in their divisions, but they were right up there. They're that guy who was hard to beat. And a lot of times it's because of the reason you mentioned, they went through more tribulation. It was perhaps they weren't as talented, or they dealt with issues that other people didn't deal with. And because of that, they made themselves understand the sport better. I think you understand something better when you really have to think about it. I'll give you an example. I'm not going to mention names, but I've trained with like world-class jiu-jitsu guys, ADCC champions, and you can ask him, "What are you doing?" And he'll go, "Oh, like that." And I'm like, "No, wait, what are you doing? Show me." And they can't explain what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. They're just so incredibly talented and athletic that for them it's second nature. Like they don't even think about it. There's never been any thought behind any of it. And those are the guys that are always mediocre coaches. Mm-hmm. They're phenomenal on the mats because they're so talented, but they're never good coaches. So there's something to be said about like putting your mind into understanding jiu-jitsu on a deeper level versus just being able to have your body do it for you, which is, better for competitors, no doubt. But like I never wanted to be person. I never wanted to be just a good competitor. I think that being a good coach is part of the journey. And think that you walk away from all of this, even if you walk away with less medals, you walk away with a superior understanding of jiu-jitsu. And to me, that's more valuable.
So was that something you always kind of felt like, even when you were kind of coming up through the ranks? Was that something, or was it something later on that you realized you wanted to do more of, being able to coach, or was that something like I said, you kind of envisioned from early on?
You know, it's funny, man. Like, no one believes me, but I was not an athletic kid because I'm tall, so people think, oh, clearly he's very athletic and strong. Like, I was a mediocre athlete. Like, I tried playing soccer in Brazil. You have no idea how much soccer I played, and it's incredible how bad I am at soccer considering how much I played. And, you know, I never expected much of myself as an athlete. When I found jiu-jitsu, both my parents are teachers. So in my head, I'm like, oh, I can be a good coach. I had in my head I was going to be a good coach. And then later, you know, I was not a very confident child. I was not a very confident teenager. In fact, I was very insecure. And jiu-jitsu did a lot for me in that regard because over time, my confidence grew.
Stick with us, guys. Hold on. Let's get him back in here. Guys, if you have any questions as well, feel free to shoot them over. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to them, but I will try. So, Amanda, it's Monday. No Gatorade on Mondays. Come on. Come on. It's only a Friday thing. Come on. We know this. I'll be ready on Friday, though. Don't worry about that. I'm going to be ready for Friday. He is like gone. Where'd he go? Oh, there we go.
Hey, man, I'm sorry about that. My phone got hot, which is
Yeah.
I don't know if ever happened to you. Like if you're on live, like it gets really warm, and then you can't really it just shuts off. I apologize.
Oh no, you're good. You're good, man. You're good. So what were we talking about? We were talking about
We were
we were
talking
talking about
about
you coming up and not
yeah.
being athletic.
Yes, and no one believes me when I say this, but I really wasn't. But I grew out of it in time. Like I became more confident. But in my head, I was going to be a coach. Like that's what I always had in my head. I was going to be a good teacher. And fortunately, you know, like I ended up competing, you know, a lot, and things went better for me over time. But I've always had that analytical approach to jiu-jitsu. I was never like one of those freaks that can just get a technique right away. It's always been an uphill battle for me. Like I've never been the most technical or the most talented. So I had to put a lot of time into thinking about stuff. And in a lot of ways, it made me, you know, I think it made me a better coach. Plus, like, you know, I was never like great at anything. I think I'm decent everywhere. Like I don't have a great close guard or a great takedown game or a great half guard. I can hang just about anywhere, which doesn't always make a great athlete, but it makes you a decent coach or a good coach because you're able to explain in many different ways, right? You're not able to just show there are some people that only do takedowns or they only have top game or they only do half guard. I always wanted to have a diverse game. And, you know, that was what I had in mind at least. But it was a lot of thinking, you know, that went behind this. It wasn't just you know, just go to the mats and train, you know, like there was a lot of thought and effort that went into, you know, trying to understand better jiu-jitsu, and I think that's helped my coaching.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I feel like I was kind of on the same boat where nothing really came naturally to me. I don't think I was really much of an athlete. I did a bunch of stuff, but like it took me a while to learn anything or to really figure things out. It never came super easy. So yeah, I feel like I can attest to that. I think you're kind of blurry right now. Do you want to see if you turn off your Wi-Fi or something? Usually it comes up a little better.
That better?
Yes, that's better. That's
Yeah,
better.
my Wi-Fi
Okay.
sucks. It's better, right?
It's all good, man. I was the one that was having a problem earlier, so we're even now. It's good. Man, I don't know if you ever remember the first time I ever met you. I was like, it was way back. It was like 13 years ago. I was going around after it was Worlds 2007, and I think it was a couple months after because that was when Worlds was still in August. So, ADCC was shortly before that. I remember. What year was ADCC the year that you won the absolute? What month
That was
was that?
2007.
2007. Yeah. So that
2007. Yeah.
was what ADCC was before Worlds that year.
It
That was
was it was
interesting.
before. You're right. I think it was in April, no, May. ADCC was wow. That's good memory, man. It was in May,
Yeah.
2007, and the Worlds was in August.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good
That's a weird
memory, man.
schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I remember I was a big fan of the Gracie magazines, and I picked up all of them. And I picked up the one that was like covered, the whole ADCC tournament. And I went around. I had everybody sign it. I had Hodger sign it. I had Marcelo sign it. I had Andre Gaval sign it. I had you sign it. Damian Maya. And I remember I talked to you a little bit, and you were asking my age. You're being really nice to me. I said I started when I was 9 or 10, and you told me you started a little later when you were 15. I think you said.
16, yeah.
Was that right? 16.
16.
So what were you doing before that? What was kind of like the beginnings for you there, if you don't mind me asking?
Like this, if you don't play soccer in Brazil, you don't have any friends. You're a social outcast. You're a misfit. You're the kid in the corner that everyone makes fun of in school and they can't get a girlfriend to save your life, But
Even if you do jiu-jitsu out there, or
actually, jiu-jitsu was not very popular in Brazil up to Royce Gracie, despite what people believe. The jiu-jitsu boom in Brazil took place around the same time it did in the U.S. The difference is that there were plenty of black belts in Brazil, or more at least, right? And I used to mountain bike. I used to mountain bike a lot. That was my sport. I did that for a while. I used to rollerblade. What else?
you're not gonna find many girlfriends that way.
Yeah, I know. It was not very popular here or in Brazil. What else? I played a lot of soccer, but I was looking for something. I know that. I was looking for something, and I've always been attracted to combat. I tried some Hapkido when I was 9, 10. It just wasn't for me. But when I found jiu-jitsu, it was love at first sight, man. Like I walked out of that gym like knowing 100% confident that was my identity. It wasn't just, oh, you're going to be a champion or you're going to be a coach or you're going to be trained forever. It's like, this is my identity. Yeah. I want to be able to tell jiu-jitsu. I want to be able to tell people that I do jiu-jitsu for a living. Like that's and something about the sport, the art, just made me very, very attracted to it. And like I had no doubts that I had found my calling. And my family was even a little worried at first. They're like, this guy, like Rob's playing karate kid taking it a little too seriously.
Yeah.
But that was sort of like the impression at the time because I was just like so obsessed with it. Like it didn't matter if it was raining, if I was sick, if I was injured, like you couldn't get me out of the gym. So, yeah, it was sort of late. I think these days most people start younger.
Yeah, I mean that it still worked out pretty well, but yeah, like was it just that first day that kind of did it for you, or was it just kind of like being there and seeing how much was involved in it, or it was just kind of just that first moment that really did it?
Well, it's a fun story. Like my first experience in Brazil was with a style called Morgante Jiu-Jitsu, which is really a hybrid between judo and karate. It's like they have very few schools in Brazil, but I didn't know the difference because it said jiu-jitsu, so I went in, and it was more of a traditional jiu-jitsu, right? More like judo and karate, really. And I went there because I had a girl at school that I liked, and she went to that gym. So I was really going out. I was curious about fighting, but I was kind of like, I wanted to flirt with her and everything.
Fair enough, priorities. Fair enough.
Yeah, priorities, right? I mean, they're not mutually exclusive, right? And we rolled. That was my first roll, and she made me tap twice with the Hokusakatami. And then she's like, she grabs the head and she pushes your arm in between her legs and she arm bars you. And then the second time she submitted me, she's like driving her knuckles into my neck and I'm panicking. I don't know what's going on, so I'm tapping. And then, man, like I had a lot of fun. It was like one of those things where I knew I didn't have a chance with her. Like my chances with her are ruined. But I really liked it, man. And it's like, man, this is something special. Like I fell in love with it. And from that moment onwards, later I started training the real Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym and I was hooked. It was nonstop after that.
Was going into competition kind of easy for you, or was that kind of something? What kind of motivated you to want to be a competitor? and compete more? Was it kind of something where you just felt like you had a knack for it, or was it just something you tried out and did well? What was kind of the process getting
You
into
know what's
that?
funny, man? When I was a kid, I was terrified of fighting. I
Hmm.
was terrified of, and in Brazil, kids fight all the time. I was terrified of being on stage. I was terrified of public speaking. I was like more of a shy, kind of awkward child. But I wanted jiu-jitsu to be my identity so bad that I felt that this can't be your identity unless you compete. If you
Yeah.
don't compete, it can't be your identity. And I know it's not the same for everyone. I'm just speaking for myself. Or some people don't like to compete, but for me to really live that identity that I wanted to have, I needed to compete.
Hmm.
So my first tournament, I jumped in. I had 2 to 3 weeks of training, and I
Wow.
signed up. Yeah, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're very brave." Like, you have no idea. I was like crying the night before. I didn't go to bed. I still have like 2, 3 hours sleep. I'm terrified, man. I was so scared. I've never been so scared in my life. But I'm proud of myself because I made myself do it, despite the fact that it was so hard for me emotionally. And it was, "Oh, did you?" Everyone asked, "Oh, you won?" Like, no, I got tapped in like 30 seconds. Might have been more like 15 seconds. And but I just kept going. Like, I wasn't a great competitor. I never, I did all right. Like, I think my fifth competition, I won the tournament. But the first
Hmm.
four I lost first fight. I wasn't doing great initially, but about like 7, 8 months into jiu-jitsu, I started like getting the hang of it. And, and your confidence grows over time. You see, okay,
Yeah.
if I did it once, I can do it again. Oh, I beat that guy. I can't believe I just beat that guy. Well, if I can beat that guy, maybe I can beat that guy over there, So your ambition grows, but it's a slow process. For me, at least, it was a slow process. Had you told me when I was a blue belt that I was going to win ADCC one day, I would have like, get out of here. Like, I wouldn't have believed you for a second. Like, when I was invited, I couldn't even believe it. I'm like, I couldn't even believe I was invited. I thought, I'm not worthy of being here.
Yeah.
Like, in my head, I'm like, I can't even believe I made it to the top 16 of the world. To me, that was insane. So like, confidence with me was not something that came overnight. It was a slow uphill battle, every step along the way.
So I'm always interested with mindset as well because I feel like it's such an important part of the game. And it's always different for everybody. Some people get away with maybe not being quite as confident. Some people have like this confidence that just it's unbreakable, but some still have success while still having to kind of struggle with confidence, and it kind of goes up and down and goes through waves. How was that process for you? Like, kind of going up in the ranks? I mean, I'm kind of getting the gist that like you kind of had to battle the confidence a little bit, but did it kind of like was it kind of like a roller coaster? You'd have good moments, you'd feel good, but then you also kind of be a little unsure at the same time.
Man, put it like this. If it weren't for having great people around me, I would have never done anything.
Hmm.
I was this is like, people talk about technique, they talk about the physical, and then talk about the mind. The mind is very important. And there's a fourth element that is just as important as the other three, and it's the social.
Yeah.
Who are you around? I mean, it takes you being with the wrong people, and you're not going anywhere. And when you're
Yeah.
with the right people, man, they'll lift you up. And I had the right people in my life many times, and I've had the opposite too. But with me, it was like, I remember there was times I didn't compete. And like, my friends would be like, "Man, you get your ass out there, compete. You make everyone tap in the gym. You're gonna do it in competition." I'm like, okay. And I go,
Yeah.
and then I
Yeah.
surprise myself and win. Like my weight
Yeah.
class in the open or something. But it was a lot of times it was just my friends really pushing me. And I've been fortunate to be surrounded by great people that really believed in me. And even when my confidence was very low, they pushed me. Like, they made me believe in myself many, many times. And those were the best moments in my life, when I had the right people around me. That's when I felt like I had my best performances. And my worst performances were in moments where I felt alone. Like, I felt like I didn't have the support, the network of emotional support around. Because fighting is highly emotional. It's something people neglect. It's not just physical. People think it's something that's purely technical and physical, but there's a large degree of emotion involved. And you're right, it's different for everyone. For some people, it's very easy. Some people it's just so natural to them. And I wasn't one of those. Like,
Yeah.
I had to be pushed, and I enjoyed the push because it made me proud of the fact that I'd done it. And then, it made me think that, okay, I'm around the right people. And that's something very good and positive. And I hope it stays this way. And I always recommend my students, man, be careful who you date, be careful who your friends are, be careful like who you surround yourself with. It's sort of cliche, but you are the average of the five people you hang out with the most.
Yeah. I really learned about that. I figured that out kind of early on. Like I become, sometimes I kind of become the people that I'm around the most. You just kind of start creating habits that way. So if you're not around the right people, maybe you're not developing the habits that you should be developing. But that's cool how you say like you needed kind of that outside push to build that confidence to motivate you to compete. I remember like just kind of on a similar story. I remember Marcelo like when I first joined Marcelo's, he actually got after all the competitors because we were going to Abu Dhabi to compete, but right after was a New York Open. We weren't sure if we were going to be back for it. And he brought us into the office because we didn't sign up on time. And he's like, guys, you're our best competitors. We need you to be in there. We need you to be signed up. I want you to be out there competing for us. And he was able to sneak us in there, which I appreciated. But I was just happy to have someone that cared and really wanted us to go compete and represent and really believed in us at the same time. He wanted us to show our skills. So having someone that can back you and that wants to see you succeed it makes things a lot easier, and it makes things more enjoyable when you compete as well, knowing you have someone like that.
I couldn't agree more, Johnny. And having that, sometimes even if you don't want to do it for yourself, you care so much about what that person thinks of you that you want to do it for them. You want to make them proud, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like sometimes, like you're not even, but you want to do it for yourself too. But you want to make a point to that person who believes in you so much that you want to make them proud. You want to make them happy. And I had moments in my life where I was like, sometimes I was fighting to make. I just wanted to make that person proud, and I think that's good. If it's you're doing it for the right reasons, man. It's not just about you. It's about you also giving back to the people who believe in you. They put all that energy and effort into you, man. Like Marcelo put a lot of energy into you. Like you should feel almost like a little like an expectation you create for yourself to give back, right? And like prove him right, because he obviously believes in you. And you want to prove him right. You don't want to disappoint him. So I've had that as well. I've had moments, and I was this is some of my favorite experiences where there's like an absolute synchrony between body and mind, and it's a very hard place to be because sometimes the mind is on, the body's off. Like your body's just not responding, and then sometimes the body's on and the mind is off. Yeah. And sometimes you get that sweet synchrony, man. And I've felt like that a few times in my life, and I think a lot of that, having that absolute synchrony, has to do with, just surrounding yourself with great people.
Yeah, I agree. So talking a little bit about competition and about Marcelo, I remember I was at that ADCC in 2007 as well. I was there, and I didn't at that time. I didn't really know anybody. I didn't really know any names. I wasn't as as much of a nerd about the game as I am now. But I remember watching and just Marcelo competing throughout the whole tournament. He was kind of like, he kind of seemed like the man in that show, And what's your mindset going into a final where this guy is just tearing through everybody, And you were talking about how you were just happy, you were just feeling like honored to be invited. What's kind of like the mindset to get yourself prepared for a final with someone as tough as Marcelo, and getting yourself up to believing that you're gonna be able to succeed?
It's interesting. Like people, it's easy to hate on Rob because Rob's the big guy. Marcelo's the little guy. The big guy always gets the hate.
You can't win that battle. Yeah.
No, and that's okay, man. And that's okay, man. But I always tell people I'm the original Marcelo Garcia fan. I was a Marcelo Garcia fan when he was a purple belt. I used to watch him.
You saw something then.
Oh, and I do, and I do believe I'm a good scout. I have an eye for this thing. I call Rafael Mendes when he was like a yellow belt. I'm like, that kid's going to be amazing, And Marcel, you can see he had something special, And I think that, I don't compare myself. I think Marcel is like 1,000 times better than me, and I say this all the time. Like technique-wise, my jiu-jitsu is ugly. My jiu-jitsu works, but it's not very pretty to watch, Whereas like Marcelo, it's like art, He's just one of those guys like him, like Mutsumetsi. When Mikey, it's just so beautiful to watch, man. It's so technical, and the movement is so gracious and perfect. But I think because I watched him so much, I was very confident on what he was gonna do. Like he does, even as incredible as he is, like he has like certain patterns. Like his takedown is arm drag to single. Everyone knows that. Like I don't think I've ever seen him go for a different takedown. And in those days, the Darce was not that popular of a move. Now it's like widespread. Every white belt knows it. But at that time, like it was not that common. and I was hitting it in practice every day. Like, that was my move because of
Yeah.
arson guillotine. So when I got in there to fight Garcia, I knew he was going to go for that single. I was like, I don't think he can hold me down. I didn't want to be underneath him. I want him either pull guard, which would work in my favor, or for him to try to wrestle me, which is what I thought he was going to try to do. And he's so aggressive that I knew he was going to be coming for me the whole time. So, like, I want him to get that single, and on one of those singles, I'm going to get that Dars. You know, it really went in there with that game plan. And I remember very well that day because I walked into the open not expecting a lot. It was very I was, kind of like, I took third in my weight class. You know what? I'm going to go out in the open. Let's see what happens. Very relaxed. And I had a good performance that day. But by the time I made it in the final with Garcia, I was so confident. It was like one of those moments of synchrony that I was describing.
Yeah.
Mind and body. And I was so confident. I remember almost preemptively celebrating with my friends in the locker room. Like, some of my friends were like, Rob, focus, and I was like, man, I was so happy to be there. And I was so confident I was going to win that day. In my head, I'm almost like in my head, I was the champion already. And it's a very difficult mindset to cultivate because, doubt kicks in and then you have an injury and you're feeling tired or whatever the case. But that day, there was no negativity. It was everything was going through. My body felt great. My mind felt great. Nothing hurt. No injuries. Like, it was just, the whole thing was just falling together. Like, it was really one of those moments where the stars aligned for me. And, it was a good day, man. I learned a lot from that, and it's done a lot for me professionally. So,
I'm curious to know how much that helped after as well. But it sounds like, and this is an interesting mindset that I try to think of as well. I remember when I would see someone that I would really look up to. I remember the first time I fought Rafa Mendes at Europeans. It was 10 days after I got my black belt. So it literally went from fighting from an idol of mine to 10 days later being someone that I was competing against. And the difference was watching them being oh man, they're really good at this, and kind of over observing to kind of just, or maybe being judgmental, to just being able to kind of observe what their game is. So it sounds like you didn't overthink what he was going to do and oh man, he's really good at this, he's really good at that. Instead, you were okay, he's going to try to do this, I can counter with that. It was being more observational instead of overthinking his game almost.
Yeah. The funny thing about studying your opponents is that there's a point there where you can actually do more harm than good. I think you want to with an idea of what you want to do. But I always tell my students, you never watch a highlight. If your opponent has a highlight, you never, ever watch the highlight because it's going to mess with your head.
It absolutely does.
So you want to walk in there, you have an idea of what I call no man's land. No man's land is where the fight's going to take place. So you're going to fight one of the Meow brothers. You're both probably going to pull guard. You're going to end up on the ground trying to berimbolo each other, or maybe come up and score the advantage on the way up, right? Whatever your strategy is. But you have an idea of where the fight's going to take place. So instead of thinking about my opponent and what he does, I envision that fight, no man's land. And I figure, what do I have to do to get to trench number one? And once I get to trench number one, what's going to be happening in trench number one? And what's going to happen in trench number two, right? So I start envisioning all the likely scenarios, because it's unlikely that you and Paulo Miao are going to end up in a stand-up match with takedowns, right? That's not going to happen. Probably not going to happen, right? Okay, so you can rule that out, and you have an idea of what he's going to try to do based on your game and his game and what he knows of you and what you know about him, right? So you have an idea, and then you picture these scenarios in your head over and over and over and over. And if you do this enough, you become so familiar with the scenarios, and you're always victorious in your head. When you're actually there, you've been there already. You've done it. So there's no hesitation. So that's a way of preparing for your opponent without psyching yourself out and becoming confident. Because if you've been through that scenario so many times in your head, it is not alien to you. You've been there already.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, absolutely. Do you work on or when you competed a lot, did you focus on visualization? Did you? I noticed one thing that I would try to practice was kind of seeing a scenario or seeing a tournament before, seeing myself dealing with bad situations, seeing myself, playing my A game as well. So so when I go into a tournament, if I felt anxious or I felt nervous, I at least had the confidence that I felt like I'd already been there, and there's almost a little bit of a calming feel when you feel like you've been in that situation before, because you've kind of, through your mind, you've kind of put yourself in those scenarios.
So the mind doesn't really understand the difference between being and actually visualizing, right? And
yeah.
And it's something I've always instinctively done because it gives me pleasure. Like, to see myself winning in my head is not an effort because I enjoy it. I enjoy going down the rabbit hole and like seeing myself on the podium and celebrating with my friends. And it's like, it's a fun exercise. And it's always been a fun exercise. So if you do that enough and you only see yourself on the podium with a gold medal, the idea of you losing is not really a thought process. It's like, well, what do you mean lose? I don't know that. Like, that guy, I don't know. You only know, you know, and I think it does build confidence and it does put you in the right mindset, you know, because you're in a situation that you have already lived so many times before that. You know, so I do recommend it. I never like to drill. I respect people who do. I never enjoyed it, and it's not something because I don't get a kick out of it. To me, it's not fun unless someone is fighting back. You know, everyone's different. I don't think that there's like I don't think it's wrong. It's just never worked for me. But one thing I did a lot was see it in my head. I would visualize it in my head a lot, and that was like my way of drilling. And I do believe it's helped because when I put myself in those situations, I already knew what to do without having to think about it.
Yeah. I even remember like learning that through my sports psychologist. He would I had an injury, and it was like the first time in my life that I wasn't able to train for an extended period of time, and I was all worried about where my technique was going to go. So we kind of focused on being able to try to visualize techniques, so it would at least try to your mind can almost trick your body into thinking that you're still putting in work. Obviously, it's not the same, but it's still fresh in your mind there, and therefore you could still perform it once you're able to get back to it. So if you're not drilling, when you're on the mats and you're working technique, what's the way that you try to implement new things or try to pick up new technique?
I never did this. I make my students do this, right?
Okay.
So like the way we did it was you learn a move and then you play around with it a little bit, and we do a lot of specific scenarios. So drilling, we call drilling like, okay, we're gonna start from butterfly today, or we're gonna start from closed guard, and every round was from that position. So you're forced to practice a new position, right? But what I do with my students is it's sort of like a warm up and a technique, and you can call it drilling. Is I'll have them. So, for example, if I'm passing your guard, I'm going to ask you to give me about 50 to 60% resistance. And I'm going to pass with the move of the day or the move of the week or whatever, right? And I'm just going for that pass over and over and over. And if you give me resistance, it makes me familiar with your resistance. Yeah. So when I actually go live, it's not, oh, what's happening here? Why is this guy getting the lasso on my arm? I wasn't expecting that. When I was drilling that wasn't happening. But if you're trying to get the lasso all the time on me, I become aware of the lasso as I'm passing. So I'm able to preemptively see what you're doing, block it off, and move on with my pass. So I'm worried not only about what I do, but also developing the coordination to be concerned with what you're doing, right? So there's it's more of a communication. There's feedback, right? Like I remember Brawley once compared like Jiu-Jitsu to an argument with the body. And I love that analogy. Because that's exactly what it is. It's an argument with the body. I say this, you counter with that. I say, so there's a response. I like to drill with the response. I get more. To me, it's more fun, and I think that you learn more if you have like feedback based off of your actions.
I understand that. I used to drill so much static drilling, and I even noticed after years I would get kind of tired of it. I would prefer more positional training, maybe drill once a day to go through the motions and to try to work all my options just to keep everything fresh. But when I'm training or I feel like I learn best when we kind of start from those specific positions as well. So I remember I had a debate with Kit Dale about it years ago, and we were kind of bouncing back and forth a bit. But now, not to say that I'm on his side or on your side. I still love drilling, but I definitely understand it more, and I definitely see the benefits in both for sure.
Yeah, a bit of a light. Yeah. A second, yeah. And no, man, I'm with you. I don't think there's one recipe on how to win. People, they differ in mindset, they differ in approach and philosophy and training methodology. Yeah. And to me, what's fascinating, going back to your point earlier about the mindset, I did notice that there's a common thread for every successful person I've ever met and everything they do. There's a common thread. And it's not necessarily the technique, because your game is very different from Roger Grace's game. Yet you're both champions. So and you guys are very different. How is that possible? So it's not the technique that's the common thread. And then I've also seen methodology. I know for a fact that many successful guys have never drilled. And I've seen many guys who are successful who drill. So that's not the common thread either. So the common thread must be something else. So what is it? And the number one thing that jumps at me is that people who are successful, they never blame other people when they lose. They have accountability. That's the number one thing. And I say this all the time, and no one likes that answer because it's not a feel-good answer. It's a hate yourself answer because you're always blaming yourself when you lose.
It comes back to that negativity a little bit.
Yes, but it's positive. It's negativity, but it is positive, because you internalize it. I lost. It's not the referee's fault. I've lost my minds with referees. Hope I don't sound like a hypocrite. We all have, but it's not his fault that you lost. You lost because you didn't tap your opponent. You made more mistakes than the ref. The ref made 1 or 2 mistakes. We've made 1,000. Right? It's not your coach's fault. It's not the mats. It's not the rules. You lost because you weren't better. Right? And that's the number one thing that I always say. That's the common denominator every champion has. The other one is they always have a white belt hat on. A white belt hat is I'm never done learning. Every now and then, I used to have like blue belts that I'd show like a half guard sweep, and they're like, oh, no, that's not my game. And they're blue belts. And they're like, that's not my game. I'm like, what the hell do you think you are? You just shut up. But you get these guys, and MMA is the worst. MMA, you get this culture where, like, I'll just punch you in the face. Every answer, 90% of MMA fighters there, they have 2 answers to all problems. I'll punch you in the face, and I'll stand back up. That's it. That's their solution to every problem. To me, that tells me that either you're absolutely incredible or you're a fucking idiot. But they're very hard to teach. They're very hard to teach because the culture is one of, I got it all figured out. So it's very hard for them to put a white belt hat on and go, praise, teach me, you know more than I do. Right? And these are the things that I try to teach my students. It's like, because I think that if I could teach the common denominator, the other things are going to fall in place. They have the freedom to drill if they want. They have the freedom to play half guard, or if they want to play, if they want to do conditioning or not, or how they want to do conditioning. To me, it's not that these things are not important, but they are the outer layer. They're not the core. At the core is accountability and the humility to understand that you're never done learning. You can learn something from just about anyone.
That's awesome. I like that a lot. So accountability and being able to be a white belt always, or kind of having that white belt mentality always.
And every successful person I've ever met, MMA and BJJ, they had that. Like, I remember, like, when I first started training MMA at Extreme Couture, like Randy Couture, who was like my idol. Like Randy Couture, when I was coming up, he was like the most dominant guy in the division, And he's asking me questions like, "What'd you do there, that knee bar?" And I'm like giving him a free private, and he's like bombarding me with questions. Dude, I couldn't even believe that this guy would be asking me questions. But then I understood why he was so good at the same time. It's like, man, this guy, he doesn't have a mindset where he feels like he's done learning. Whereas the other guys, they were like, oh, I already know that. No, I'll do this. That's not going to work on me. And you can see they never really get better. If you watch that guy, they never, ever improve. They're the same person. From blue belt to black, they never improve.
Yeah. Those are the people that are also able to evolve with the times as well. You see guys that continue to compete at a high level, guys who are maybe a little bit older, but they've been through numerous generations, but they continue to stick with the game that's going on now because they're always willing to learn. They're always willing to adapt. Yeah. Like I always see like Cyborg competing, and I feel like he's been around for forever. It feels like I remember him from when I was a kid watching him compete at black belt, and still able to be at a high level. And it's because he's able to learn things. Like I remember I was there. I think he was asking me a question. I'm like, why? Like kind of going back to like, why are you asking me questions? You don't need my answers, But that's how he's able to stay at the level he's at.
And jiu-jitsu is one of those things, and I try to explain this to people. Not everyone understands. There's no such thing as staying where you are. In jiu-jitsu, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no such thing as a flat line throughout your life. I would love to say that I'm sharp today as I was 10 years ago, but I'm not. My timing is off. It's not the same. It's not just the age. It's just I train less. Partly because of my injuries and all that, but like I train less than I used to. So it's a constant effort to be updating your jiu-jitsu. Your iPhone is updated every few months, right? Your jiu-jitsu's got to be updated every day. Yeah. And it's not just new techniques. It's perfecting what you know. It's learning new pathways. It's learning new different ways of doing the same thing. And, you have to have that mindset. I think that the second you lose that mindset, they're kind of done. It's kind of like sometimes it's an early retirement. And you see guys that are at the blue belt, 21 years old, and they're kind of retired already without knowing because they're done learning.
That's awesome. I really like that. I know you're busy. It looks like everything's opening up, but
it's okay. Come here.
What's up?
But no, man, we got time. I got an open mat session about to start. But
well, this cuts us off after an hour anyway. But I wanted to ask you, how after all these years of training, how are your hands? How are your hands angled?
You want to see something funny?
Yes. How? So you got
that?
bad ones?
I got no ligaments.
It just bends like that. Oh, geez, I wasn't even thinking. Oh, no, that's not good.
Yeah, I got no ligaments on this finger. My wrists are the worst part. I got no cartilage left in my wrists. So if I hand fight you, it's like I'm wrist locking myself. Every time I hand fight people. So collar chokes are very painful. I can be on someone's back and I'm trying to choke, and it feels like I'm wrist locking myself. You know, so the only submission I can go, the two submissions I can go for that don't hurt me are arm bars and triangles. My legs are too fat for triangles.
So then you only got arm bars at that
I got arm bars, the only move I can do. Like so I think I'm better at arm bars. My arm bar from closed guard was like mediocre. It's actually getting pretty decent. That's the only move I can really do these days without hurting myself.
That's funny. But, I mean, I just wanted to say that just because if you want, like, I started my own tape company. And I'd love to send you guys out some tape for you and your students to try.
Thank you.
So we don't have the wrist tape yet. We'll get that, though. We will make that happen. But we can at least get you some finger tape, at least help you keep a little bit of support on that fucked up finger of yours there.
No, for sure. And I, it helps a lot because I do have to tape it to give it a little more support. But I say this all the time to my students is you can be a mediocre athlete in jiu-jitsu and be good, except for one muscle group. There's only one muscle group you have to be stupid strong, and that's the hands. Because if your hands are weak, nothing else works, right? Yeah. You don't have to be a superb athlete, but your hands got to be well above average for you to be successful in jiu-jitsu. And if there's one muscle group you want to take care of, or there's one like you want to make sure they're always healthy is your hands, because that right there will determine how long you can be effective in jiu-jitsu. Because my jiu-jitsu took a big hit once my hands got weaker because of the wrists and the fingers. So it's I don't know how judokas do it, man. Like I watch those guys and I'm like, how do you guys do it? Because
I don't know either.
It's way harder on their hands than it is on ours. And sometimes you see in their 50s and they're still going. I'm like, I don't know how they do it. But definitely take care of your hands.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd love to send some out to you. And before this sometimes this cuts us off a little early. But I just want to say thank you for doing this, man. I really learned a lot. It was a lot of fun.
No, for sure, man. It was my pleasure. Just to say hi to everyone. Invite you guys. If anyone's ever in Vegas, definitely stop by the gym. Everyone's welcome. I'm not very political when it comes to jiu-jitsu. I just love the sport. I love the art. And anyone who wants to come over here and share some knowledge with us, yourself included, next time you're in Vegas, hit me up. We'll do a seminar. I'd love to have you over. Just message me. You got my number now, and we'll make it happen.
Hey, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. It's nice talking to you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Hey, take it easy, guys.
All right. Ciao.
Have a good one.